Good evening, folks. Welcome to the stream. For those of you who are new, my name is Alex Huntley from Warploque Miniatures, and tonight we are going to be working upon one of the new creatures that's going to be coming out for Digital Workshop, which is my Patreon, where I produce printable fantasy miniatures for you guys at home that have 3D printers. So if you are in the chat, do say hello. If you're new, welcome, and I hope you enjoy the stay. And if you are returning, welcome back. So who have we got in tonight? Marcel's currently printing the goblins from this month. Excellent. Are they the first print, or have you done a test print before? So once again, just to double check everything's working okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Is the music levels right? Just kind of get all this stuff done at the start. Oh, painting the goblins. Sending me pics later. Ooh. Just getting the chat up on my laptop, just so I can check it once I'm sculpting. Music is a bit high tonight. Is that better? Good evening, Jonathan. Sweet, right, so let's get cracking with tonight's sculpting. So, if the thumbnail hasn't given you too much of it away, tonight I'm going to be working on the cockatrice. So this is going to be a monster for July's release of Digital Workshop. I did a poll on the group, on the Patreon page, to see which kind of option people would like in terms of content. So the options were dwarves, like do like a ranger dwarf warband, more goblins, and maybe perhaps some multi-part ones, or two big beasties and the big beasties one. So for July, because I like to, sculpt stuff in advance, just so it gives me enough time to kind of work on my other projects as well, I thought I'd get started straight away with this, because it was actually a model I really, really wanted to do. So I'm quite happy to be taking a bit of a break from goblins for a little while. But yes, so if you see it at this point here, I've sculpted the head, just because the head's the funnest part to do. It can often, really make a big difference in terms of the rest of the model, because it's kind of the bit that you focus on, and then just very loosely kind of blocked out the main body. So I kind of went for more of like a wyvern-esque or wyvern-esque like body composition. He's going to be quite a big chap, so probably go on like a 60mm if we're using like the same piece sizes as Arcworld, so like a 60mm base. So he's quite a big boy. Ooh. Evening Mal. Evening Jacko. Jonathan Young, I've been learning ZBrush a lot the last 2 weeks. The first thing I did getting into this video was try to rotate the cockatrice. Aim pointer star painting. Oh, this looks cool. Thank you very much. And Tiny Magic, good evening. So, I think to start off with, I'm going to block out kind of the membrane of the wings. So I'm going to go for a kind of like, as I said, more of a Wyvern-esque look to this guy. So I will start with a sphere. And then using the move tool, which is one of my favourite ones to use, I'm just going to stretch it out. Oh, mesh cannot be used while the quick 3D edit mode is off. Please turn on the quick 3D edit in the transform palette. Okay. What's going on here? Seem to have reached a little bit of... So I'll just delete that. So, mesh cannot be edited while the quick 3D edit mode is off. Please turn on the quick 3D edit in transform palette and try again. What's this talking about? Edit. Aha. Now let's try this. Try again. There we go, that's better. So as you can see here, I'm kind of stretching this very much like a membrane over the top. This is just to kind of bulk out the first parts of it. So this is quite a rough process, not going for anything too delicate here. As I said, I am just roughing out the core kind of shape of the wing. And I'll be adding more detail on as the sculpt progresses. So that's roughly the kind of the shape I wanted to go for. Just bring that back. Then we shall Dynamesh. There we go. Just smooth that out. So I went through quite a lot of the kind of the the tips and tricks that I've picked up over the past few weeks in my previous sculpting video where I worked on the Sproing Beast. But if you do have any questions on how I do things, then please drop a comment in the chat. I'll check it every now and then. I mean, it won't be as much as my kind of traditional sculpting videos, just because obviously I'm having to concentrate on the screen. So there we go, it's kind of a rough wing shape there. So before I crack on with the other one, I'll just check the chat. Jonathan Young, I love Hedonist, thank you very much. Dagfin says he sees this as an alternate Cocklegriff for Artworld, very cool. Jonas, maybe flatten and adjust it first to make it easier. Well, we got there in the end. Rob says that the music's a bit too loud. That's better. Mal says, funny you should say that, Dagfin. I've had the insane idea of using the Digital Workshop Goblins with the Arcworld Halfling rules. That is a very strange idea. So that they do actually work with the Gremlin rules, but they could work as Halflings just as well. Mouse has even got some little hut files to print off when all set up. Brilliant. 8-pointed star painting. Will this be cast, or will it be STL only? Well, at least for the coming few months, it will just be STL because of the Patreon backers. But we are looking into actually producing, production prints of all the Digital Workshop miniatures. It's quite an expensive process getting cast quality prints. So we'd have to do a little bit of research into whether or not the want for them was actually there or not. So there we go. So duplicate that. Rotate that into place. One of the things I always really struggle with is the kind of the rotation tool. Still haven't quite gotten the hang of it yet. Come on, bud. little bit. Bring this down here. Blend it a little bit, sorry, smooth it a little bit. There we go. Just pull out the tip of this wing. So there we go. So there is the kind of the first blocking out of the wings. I think next I'll work the tail a little bit. Now, a lot of the cockatrices that I've seen from kind of in other artworks and stuff like that, they've all been kind of a little bit spindly, whereas I think for our boy, I'm going to make him a bit more of a chungus. Wattle down. Like that. And then just add a bit more of a smoother shape to the tail, maybe make it a little bit longer. There we go, and then I'll just add a little bit of clay build up. There we go. And then just do a little bit of Dynamesh. So let's check the chat. The music RuneSmith uses. Who's that? WackoGov is asking how big is this fella going to be, and that's the beauty of digitally sculpting. He can be as big or as small as you want him to be, but I'm sculpting him to be roughly around, maybe a bit bigger than troll size if you're using the Arcworld models as a comparison. 8-pointed Star Gaming, I use yours in my Beast of Chaos army for Age of Sigmar. Works perfectly. Great sculpt, thank you very much. Jonas is asking, what is that tool called? Which tool is that, Jonas? The one that I've got on here? Yeah, so it's called the Clay Build-Up tool here. And it's what I use to kind of bulk up most of my sculpts. So now we're going to start building up some of the musculature. So I'll be adding a nice big keel, like normal, say modern day birds, to attach those big chest muscles to. Add that delicious breast meat. Now, as I said, I will be working in more detail in further steps. I do need to bring in need to bring that up here a little bit. Just drop a save there, just in case the worst happens, and it has happened to me quite a few times today whilst I've been working. And as any of you guys who do a lot of work on the computer are all very well aware, it is not good fun when something you've been working on for an hour or two just so happens to crash. So I might drop a few more saves a bit more regularly. So we have something that looks a little bit like this. So you can see where pretty much the design of the model that I'm going to be making. So now to add a few more of the details. So before we do that, let's check the chat. Jonas is asking, did you make the wing frames from elongated spheres, or is it made from the dragon template? So the wing membranes, I use just a normal sphere and just stretched it out to the required shape using the move tool. Alex Runesmith is a pretty fun D&D channel here on YouTube. You should check him out. Absolutely. Anything you would like to see done from a pointed star painting? In what way would you? In what way do you mean? Dagfin is asking, could you please talk us through the pre-sculpting phase of a project like this, from idea, research, inspiration, and early sketch? Well, actually, I'm not a very good role model for this kind of stuff because it's quite rare, actually, that I do any kind of pre-sculpting work. I'm very much the kind of person that likes to essentially make it up as he goes along. Now, of course, I have like a rough idea of the kind of thing that I want to make, but I often find that if you spend too much time planning, you often lose out on the spontaneity of working from scratch with nothing. There are some things that you can figure out whilst you're sculpting that if you were trying to stick to a very set concept, you might not even come up with those ideas. So I try to go in as fresh as possible, and then if something works, I try something out. It works. Doesn't work, just press undo it, which is not as easy. Is much easier on ZBrush than it is with traditional sculpting. Definitely. Like, I find that I can be a lot more spontaneous with ideas when I'm digitally sculpting, just because generally the process is a lot faster, and also it doesn't use up any materials. Like if you spend time sculpting a model by hand and it doesn't work out, not only have you wasted your time, but you've wasted the materials as well. But also you can just press undo, and that can, if you try something that doesn't work out, you can just undo that, and that is really, really invaluable, especially when you like to be quite spontaneous with your sculpting ideas like myself. Jonathan Young, save often, save multiple locations with one being off-site if possible. Oh, absolutely. Now that has happened to me as well, so where I've saved a model, and then for some reason, because I have everything linked to a cloud or whatever, and went to go back to find it, it had completely disappeared. As you can probably imagine, I was not best pleased. Hey Hayden, how's it going, buddy? Marcel can confirm he just slaps some putty on and goes to town, absolutely. And I do agree with this. I think with a lot of creative stuff, at least this is from my experience. Obviously, everybody's different, but I find that people do get a little bit too caught up in planning stuff and trying to get it perfect first time and stuff like that. And I'm very much more of a, just take a crack at it. Like, I've seen so many like budding sculptors like spend years and years, obsessing over tiny little details like musculature or stuff like that, and it just means that they don't actually end up sculpting anything very fast at all. Whereas if you just kind of take a crack at it, I mean, yeah, it's probably not going to work out well first time, but at least you've got something to show for your efforts. And as we all know, we do learn through making mistakes. Just adding a little bit of movement to these wattles. Not that, but nah, keep it simple. In the wattle, in the kind of the folds, in the neck. Just tidy up that tail a little bit. There we go. Cool. So just check the chat. Dagfin says, but obviously you need to know stuff to be able to pull it off, like the keel on this model. Oh, absolutely. I would say, like, one of my biggest inspirations, especially when creating creatures, are modern day animals, or even prehistoric animals and stuff like that. Paleo art is a big inspiration. The natural world is a huge inspiration. Like, I've always had a very, very keen interest in biology. I actually studied human genetics at university, and even when I was a little lad, like, I was always looking at dinosaur books, at animal books, and just absorbing all the kind of the body structures of these creatures. And it really does help when I do create my monsters, because one of the best things you can do when creating monster designs is use features from real animals, because it helps with the believability. One of the things I really try when I do make a creature is how did this thing evolve? What body features can I use from real life animals? I mean, obviously, I take a lot of artistic license. Like, if you look at the actual body structure of this guy, there'd be no way in hell that he could actually fly. But, it is fantasy. You can take a little bit of artistic license with it. But when it comes to, things like the keel, where the chest muscles attach, The wings, I'm actually, rather than going for dragon wings, I'm taking a lot of inspiration from pterosaur wings, and I'll show you how I get across with that when I work on kind of the hands and the feet. But, you know, those are real-life structures that have evolved. There's fossil records and loads of paleo art to take inspiration from people who have tried to imagine how these creatures would look like in real life. Christopher Dawson, use a service that lets you go back multiple versions like Google Drive or Dropbox. It is also automatically backs up off-site. Brilliant. I do actually use Dropbox. All good fella, sculpted alongside your commentary. Brilliant. Jonathan Young, fail faster. Oak and Bronze, yesterday evening I had to file super glue off my fingers, and this evening I just managed to undercoat them. Dagvin, Oaken, if you're a true hobbyist, you'll be painting them soon too. At least the thumb, absolutely. Tazal McAllister, bit too pointy for pterosaur wings. Yeah, I know how like modern paleo art shows how they've got more of a rounded thing, but this is a big spiky chicken monster, so I'm keeping the old school way. Rob Huntley, Alex, I still think the music is too loud. Right, okay. Is that better? Cool, right, so to work on the feet and the hands, I've done a little bit of a Blue Peter moment here. You know, I've done a this is what I made earlier. So I've done this. So one of the really great things about digital sculpting using ZBrush is that you can make pre-made assets and then use them as often as you want, and it can often save so much time when working on pieces. So I actually made this for another one of the monsters that I'm making for July's release, which is the Basilisk, and I can show you the kind of the work in progress on that at the end of the stream. But it, with a little bit of adjustment, it can also be used for the cockatrice as well. So I've loaded that into here, and now I can import this to this model here. Now, as you can see, the kind of the size scale is a little bit off, but that's not a problem at all. So I can just go to the deformation and scale it down, and then rotate. Wrong axis. I think it might be the y-axis. There we go. A little bit smaller. Rotate a little bit more. So there we go. Now, it doesn't particularly matter about the actual arm, because we're not going to be using that, we'll be using the leg. So what I can do is, if I hide that, if I trim, so I've just got the foot there. I can move it into place. So if I just bring this down a little bit, kind of pull that out of the way, then you've got, at least to start off with, pretty good foot. I think I'll probably be adding some like some spurs to kind of stick with the cockerel theme. But already, without pretty much any more work. I think that looks pretty good. So I'll take that foot and I'll duplicate it. Mirror it so it's on the other side. Is that right? Oh, it might be actually. Oh no, that's the right one. So go back to move. There we go. See, that's pretty much bang on. Maybe needs to rotate a little bit more. There we go. So already, just by being able to kind of copy and paste those feet in, I've already saved so much time compared to if I was sculpting them from scratch. This guy. So there we have it, two pretty okay looking monster feet. The music's still too loud. Is that better? So anyway, back to the sculpting. So we've got the back feet, and I'll be using pretty much the same tactic for the front feet as well. So duplicate again. And move it forwards to here. Rotate down like this. No, I think I'm probably going to just keep two of those fingers, because what I'm thinking of doing is, because if you know how pterosaur wings work, they're the kind of the long, this kind of long spoke here is actually made up of the little finger of the hand. So I think what I'll do is first of all I shall rotate that slightly. I'll we? Just trim that off there. And I don't know, I might keep this. I'll keep it for now. Yeah, I think I prefer kind of having this thumb up here and then stretching that toe out. So I'll go back to rotate. Oop. So like that. Ooh. And then I'll duplicate this. So on the first one. Oh no! It's always very frustrating when this happens. So I've got to kind of go back through everything and kind of reapply all the colour, which is quite frustrating. There we go. Where were we? Ah, yes. So, yep. So what I'm doing here is I'm essentially slicing off part of the model, or part of this particular tool. There we go. Ooh. Just get rid of these little bits. Don't seem to be wanting to be gotten rid of. So you do it the old-fashioned way. Just kind of grind them down until they're too small to notice. Ah, that's really annoying. See, that works. So yes, unfortunately, guys, I'm far from a master at ZBrush. I'm still very much learning, and there are just little things like this that I just can't seem to work out. See if I can smooth it into insignificance. That'll have to do. probably move it a little bit up the leg, or arm, should I say. There we go. So it looks like this. And I'll be, once I work a bit more detail on the actual forearm itself, I'll add the tendons and stuff in there. And then for the other side, duplicate that again. Mirror it. Leave it there or so. Then I'll slice that down a little bit. I'll smooth it out a bit. I'll work on the details on that later. Drop a save, because you never know. And then copy the thumb. Once again, duplicate, mirror. Then move them up here. Oop. That didn't work out quite well. There we go. Oop. I think I might just have to flip it. That did not work. Kind of worked. As I was saying before, like, I do find the rotation tool really frustrating. Like, I've been told that in newer versions that it's much better, but I'm working with a pretty old version at the moment, so I might have to, once the Patreon kicks off, I might treat myself to an updated version. Go. Cool. So let's check in the chat. What tool are you using to cut off pieces? So I'm actually using the. Hang on just a second. I've got this thing that changes the colours of my screen as it gets later. So just turn that off. But the thing that I use to kind of cut chunks off of models is trim lasso. So you select that, then it kind of gets pinged to the Control Shift key shortcut. So when I press Control and Shift, it means I can essentially cut chunks out. Now, once again, it does take a little bit of getting used to. I think I've figured out that if you go up and down, it cuts out the chunk that's selected. But if you go down to up, it kind of cuts off what hasn't been selected. Or it could be the other way around, I can't quite remember. Yeah. How much is a brush? About $800. I think, yeah, it's about that. So that's not the version that I've got, but I think, as I said, once the Patreon's up and running, no, it is up and running. Sorry, once it's properly, you know, going, and I have loads and loads of patrons, and I can afford to spend $800, I think I might upgrade. But I've kind of got like a really old version that I got off someone in college, I think, which was almost 10 years ago. You can get ZBrush Core for $150. What's in ZBrush Core? Right, so I'm just going to drop a save. Cockatrice, yup. Then I'm just going to grab a drink. Be right back. There we go. Yeah, you gave me Photoshop C3 about 10 years ago. The time does fly. Cool. So now that we've got pretty much the body and the kind of the basic shapes of the cockatrice sorted, I'm going to start going in with the detail. So first off, you can see that the kind of the Dynamesh I've got on this is quite low poly. So before I start on the detail, I'm gonna have to ping that up. There we go. I might add a little bit more red to it. That'll do. So I think I'm just going to start with some kind of little feathers. I'm not going to cover the whole thing in feathers, just a little bit, just to give the painters something to get their brushes on. Now this is probably going to take quite a while and isn't exactly brain intensive, so if you do have any questions that you'd like me to answer, now is actually the perfect time to ask. Ooh. Just a second. Is the music working for you guys? It's not coming through for me. Oh, that's very odd, because it's completely stopped coming through for me. Oh well. So as you can see here, just keeping it super simple, just essentially just pulling out the mesh just to make little feathers. Now this would work for scales as well, or fur, but I think with fur you would have to. So I do use quite a similar technique for fur, but I intersperse kind of the pulling out like this, but also with kind of drawing in the lines. So I'm just running it just up the top, or up the spine, should I say. Christopher Dawson, it's Dawson or Dawson? My Inchos 3D tablet came bundled with ZBrush Core for £150, and at the time ZBrush Core was £180. Wow, that is a bargain. What's happening with the month of Arcworld mentioned in the Chilling Wargamers stream? I'm not going to say anything about that just yet. So, but I'll make some announcements when we have a bit more kind of information. Don't want to kind of spoil the surprise. I've reached a point where it doesn't smooth anymore. How would you circumvent that? To be honest, buddy, I'm not too sure. I mean, sometimes you do have, if something it's impossible to smooth, I would say just carry on dynameshing it. Speaking of which, oop, it's a little bit too much. Oof, that also looks a bit rough. Ah, that's really upsetting. Okay, we'll deal with that later. So just adding some texture on the wattles and the kind of the folds of skin and stuff like that. Those of you who have kind of who are aware of my work know that this is a bit of a trademark of mine. I do like my monsters saggy, but it just gives the painter lots of texture to work with. Ooh. So there we go, some lovely wattles. Now I do hope I can keep that texture with the feathers when I dynamesh it. So if I blur 0, it's kind of alright. Try that again without the polish. There we go, that's better. I think. Try. Yeah. No, it's that polishing that seems to do it. Drop a save. So I'll go back. Oh, it's looking very grainy. I think I'd rather take the plunge. Dynamesh it now. Oh no, it's not bad actually. Might have to go in with the dam standard and just add a bit more kind of depth to the feathers or the scales, depending on how you paint them. So, who out of you guys have managed to print off the goblins? My first digital workshop release, and I think they'll always have a very special place in my heart. So that's kind of what I've got so far with the scales / feathers. I think whilst it's on the top of my mind, I'll go in with the dam standard and just add some depth. few little divots and just little oh no, that's not what I want. Just give the painter lots of stuff for their brush to pick up. Now, I'm sure there is actually a much quicker way of doing this. Like, one of the great things about ZBrush is that it is full of these little time-saving devices. But weirdly, I do prefer doing things by hand. Like, obviously, you know, stuff like copying and pasting certain elements of a model are really good. But I think with certain things, like, I am trying to keep, even with, especially with my digital stuff, I'm really trying to keep that handmade look, because it is one of the things that I really value in my traditional stuff, is the fact that it is made by hand, and I do want to kind of avoid that very kind of almost robotic look that some digital sculpts have. So I think I'll add some feathers on the head. Where is it? No, that's not it. There we go. Yeah, symmetry's on. It's not working. I'll turn symmetry off. That is one of the unfortunate things about ZBrush, at least that I've managed to figure out so far, is that the symmetry kind of tools are based on the symmetry of the entire palette rather than of the tool that you're working on. So if you are, you know, wanting to do some stuff, it is very much dependent on where it is on the build plate. Build plate, canvas, floor. So I think I should Dynamesh this a little bit more. There we go. There we go, that's better. So there we go, just a little bit more kind of to. Oh, goblin, no! Cat just jumped on the keyboard. Move. Just pull this out a little bit. So just to let you guys know, unfortunately I won't be doing a full 2-hour stream tonight, so we'll be calling it a night at about half 9, so we've got about quarter of an hour, 10 minutes left, so I'll just do the finishing touches on this, And then for the final 10 minutes, we can just have a little chat about anything you want. Just bring that. Still not looking too good. There we go. Yeah. Yeah, he's coming along really nicely. I'm really happy with him. See, this is what I love. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I love sculpting monsters. They are my favourite thing to do. And so I'm very happy to be finally working on something big and scary for Digital Workshop. And it's something that I'm hopefully going to be continuing. Like, I think there are so many Patreons out there already that do, you know, who do the like kind of like RPG characters and stuff like that, like, you know, player characters. Like, I feel like that's a very oversaturated market, but I feel like if I'm playing to my strengths, I'll be doing pretty much monsters. I mean, there might be a few times where I branch out into something more kind of player character based, but monsters are where my heart is. So I think that's what I'll be sticking to the most. And here we go. Here's what the old girl looks like at this point. So, give it a quick render. Yeah. Very happy. Right, so for the final 10 minutes, I shall look at the chat. Christopher Dawson, Jonathan Young, I'm watching this stream using my Hulong canvas as a second screen. I upgraded. Oop, no goblin. 8-pointed star painting. So, would you say that digital sculpting is faster than doing the greens? Oh, 100% faster. Like, I can sculpt so much more quickly digitally than I ever could even dream of doing by hand. And, like, I would consider myself, like, quite a fast sculptor, traditionally using putty, but compared to digital stuff, you know, it doesn't even compare. Like, I can crack on with so much more content on ZBrush quicker than I could by hand. So I can definitely see why the industry is leaning more towards digital stuff, like 100%, but I think more for my own personal tastes, like I do want to stick to traditional sculpting for Arcworld, but for any other projects I work on, like Digital Workshop, if I do end up getting around to doing another Warp Team Fantasy Football team, I'll probably be doing that in ZBrush just because it is so much quicker. Let's talk about... Nice, I finally got a drawing display and XP pen. Talk about changing my life. So would you say that works well for you? Because I did try one once upon a time, but I couldn't really get around to it because there was ooh, no goblin, don't stand on the keyboard. Like, there was a big kind of difference between where my pen was on the screen and actually where the cursor was on the screen. Like, I think because it had like a protective cover over it, like there were just, you know, all of my movements were off, and that just really irritated me. Haha, you tease. How's about spilling some more info on the Boggling Bazaar 3? You know, it's just a load of my old horrible models that you people won't actually allow me to put in the bin where they belong. I mean, I'm joking. Like, I know you guys love my older stuff, especially stuff that you guys didn't have chance to grab while they were still in production. You know, some models out there were only had like 10 copies made, but that was back in the day when I couldn't even give my stuff away. Dowson, pronounced Dowson. Cool. Mr. Hardwick, evening all. Must say, this is looking fantastic. Looking forward to the baby monsters as well. Brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to sculpting them too. Mal, looking very good, Alex. Thank you. The feathers fur technique is kind of mind-wobblingly simple, but really effective. It actually is. Like, I think one of the things that a lot of digital sculptors don't realise is that, at least if they're making stuff for miniatures, is that you can really, like, you don't need to put in all this detail because it's just not going to come up when printing it at that scale. Like, I think that my time, I have said this quite a few times in the past, like my experience with traditional sculpting has really helped me get my teeth into ZBrush because I know what works well at that scale. Like, I mean, it's not as common anymore, but back in the day when digital sculpting was first really hitting the scene, like, you'd have people and the renders would look absolutely astounding because they'd packed in so much detail, but as soon as you printed it 28mm or 32mm, you just lost most of that entirely. So, like, there are little simple techniques that can really work well, and those techniques work just as well with traditional sculpt as well. You just kind of transpose that into the digital world. Who has a printer? I need to paint those goblins. Well, there is actually quite a few people, I believe in the Arkworld group, that have a printer, so I'm sure if you put out a hue and cry, they'd be happy to help you out. Jonathan Young, wow, I can't type today. Nice to see you, Eddie. Don't apologise. And Jonathan Young, I'll be setting my resin printer this week and starting on the gobs. Brilliant. Damouflon, I printed them and they looked really good. Thank you very much. Dagfin saying they might do now, but when you better, these earlier models will undoubtedly get a different look. Dagfin just teasing, of course, they will be classics. 8-pointed star, going to have to ask the Master of Coins if she'll let me buy a 3D printer. Yay, Goblin, my granddaughter. Yep, Goblin the cat made an appearance, trying to cause mischief as possible. She always is baffled why I'm not giving all my attention to her. Evening, good sir. Good evening, Mr. Elston. Thank you very much. Lord Maiden, looking good. Mount Edge, maybe every third month of the Patreon you do some different monsters. Yeah, absolutely. Or, I mean, I am very keen to kind of tailor the Patreon to what the patrons want to see. Like, one of the big things about backing the Patreon is that you have a say in what is made. So I'll be doing these monsters, and then if you guys actually really like them and you want me to focus more on monsters, then I'll do more monsters. If you guys want more kind of like diminutive races like goblins or kobolds or whatever, I'll do those. And even if you guys like Alex would really you'd like to see your take on the more kind of PC characters like dwarves or elves or stuff like that, then I'd happily do that. It's up to you guys. You are the ones who are funding it, so you are the guys who will get to choose what I make. I want to see what you can do on this for the trolls. Ooh, absolutely. I think I'm going to save the trolls when I'm a little bit more practiced, and I think that's going to be a big month. Jonathan, Alex, looking awesome. Thank you very much. Zal McCann, don't forget to show the basilisk. Yes. Right. So, I'll just do a final kind of 360 view of the cockatrice. So there you go. So I'll just open up basilisk. So save the cockatrice. So here is the first kind of work on the basilisk. So I just started this guy today. So he's very, very early stages. Like, I've been mostly spending time getting the June goblins ready, but just because I had a bit of spare time this afternoon, I thought I would start to kind of bulk out the basilisk. So I've tried to stick with the kind of the D&D version of it. So it's got 8 legs, and because obviously it's meant to fit on a base, I tried to kind of clump things together as much as possible without making it look too cramped. So, but I'm really looking forward to working on this guy. Like, I'm thinking of making the face quite serpentine as well. Like, I know how the picture on the current D&D one is really kind of big and chunky and stuff, but I wanted to really stick to a more kind of slippery, serpentine, sleek look for the Digital Workshop Basilisk. So for July, I will be releasing these 2 big monsters as part of the July pack. Then I'll also be doing some like eggs and stuff, and perhaps some juveniles or kind of, smaller creatures that would be in like a dungeon or a kind of a cave environment where these guys would be living. Just so, if you are a DM, you've got like a whole kind of well, not a menagerie of monsters to fight, but you've got a pretty good encounter for your players. Brilliant. Thanks, guys. I'm glad that you like it. As I said, I'm really looking forward to getting this guy. And once again, he's going to be a huge boy. Like, I'll sculpt him to be made, I'd say, like a human character would probably come up to about here. But here, I think I have really enjoyed. I've liked working on the goblins, but it feels good to finally sink my teeth into some monsters. So there we go, folks. I'm afraid it's a bit of a short one this week, but thank you very much for joining me tonight. If you guys haven't checked out the Patreon, the link is in the kind of the bottom of the screen. I'm also running a raffle at the moment to win up to 50% off Warploque miniatures products. So if you're a fan of Arcworld and you want to try and get into that, if you're not into already, now's a perfect chance to win. But yeah, I shall see all of you guys next week. Probably doing a painting stream next week. Be working on the June goblins. So we've got the shaman, we've got like a banner bearer, we've got the wolf riders, we've also got the Sproing beast riders as well. So there's lots and lots of stuff to slap my dirty great paintbrush all over. It's going to be a good one. Right, well, thank you very much for joining me, folks, and I hope you have a lovely evening, and see you all next week. Ta-ta for now.